Welcome back to Small Caps. My name's Kerry Stevenson. We're going to go across to Chile today, one of my favorite places. Great country, really good for copper gold. And joining me today is Zeph Reeves. He's the Managing Director of Tesoro Resources. The ASX code of Tesoro is TSO. Write that down. Lots of news, lots to talk about. This is one exciting story. This is not just an exploration company. This is a company that's going to get into mining in the not too distant future. So sit back and have a listen to what Tesoro Resources and their update with us today. Zeph Reeves, great to see you. And let's start off with a little bit of an update. Just who are Tesoro Resources before we go into some detail?
Yeah, hi, Kerry. Thanks for taking the time to have a chat. Tesoro is a gold developer in Chile. We've got a large bulk tonnage mining project in the coastal belt of Chile, which we're bringing online to develop into a mine as quickly as we can.
So you say bulk tonnage and you're going to want to bring it into a mine. It's not just about exploration. Let's talk about where the asset is, how long you've had it, because when you only listed in February of last year, but you did a bit of work beforehand on the ground, privately funded it yourselves, you and your team. So just talk to us about the inception of Tesoro and what you were doing in the lead up to last year's listing.
Yeah, look, Tesoro was founded in 2017 by myself, Jeff McNamara, and our Chilean General Manager, Sergio Uribe, and with the view to look for gold deposits in the coastal belt of Chile, which are well supported by infrastructure and workforce and so on in good locations where it's not inconceivable that a junior exploration company could take a project through from discovery right through to production. So we say deposits in that part of the world that are of that scale that it's capable of being able to do that. And I think at our Zorro, that certainly ticks all those boxes. It's located 800 kilometres north of Santiago. It's right on the coast, 50 kilometres outside of a port town called Caldera. Power's close by. We've got water nearby. So it ticks a lot of those project selection criteria.
Did it take you a while? Sorry to interrupt you, Zeph, but did it take you a while? I'd like to ask why Chile and how you came across this particular project, because it's quite a large project, as you said at the start there. You said bulk tonnage as well. Why this area in particular? You've mentioned that there's water and there's a port close by. Were there other things that tick the boxes for you?
Yeah, obviously the geology. So I'd spent a lion's share of the last 20 years of my career in South America, initially in Brazil and then into Chile. During that time, met Sergio and known him. He's a good friend of mine as well as a business associate. Him and I have done various things in Chile over the years, probably the last 10 or 12 years. And together we took a good look at the coastal belt, starting way back in 2015 and looking at areas that we thought hadn't been explored properly, or there was other opportunities there where perhaps there was some mineralisation that had been mined at sort of an artisanal level,
right?
But represented something that was part of a larger system. So we actually identified our Zorro back around 2016 and engaged the vendor right back then, and took a lot of time and a lot of patience and a reasonable amount of capital to get a deal done.
Okay.
And that initial deal was done to acquire El Zorro back in 2017, and we did the deal on an initial 10,000 hectares, and obviously that's grown considerably since then, because we really do think that we've identified a totally new style of mineralisation for Chile and a big new gold district. So we expect that the potential for repeats of the Ternera style of mineralisation outside of the areas that we've already defined, and we could see a geological belt there that showed a lot of the characteristics that we have identified as being prospective, and we went and expanded that project area to over 500 square kilometres now. We've got about 55 kilometres of strike And I think the Ternera discovery is certainly on the radar in Chile with some of the sort of mid-tier and majors are now looking at the area as well and pegging ground around us, which is always a good validation. So
that's a big validation. Yeah.
So we're we think we've got the best of it, or the most prospective stuff where where they pegged, we had a look at and didn't think there was going to be much there, but obviously they're interested in what we're up to and keeping a close eye on proceedings, I'd say.
Yeah, when the big boys come sniffing, you know that you're in the right area. You mentioned it's a different style of mineralization. Before we get into your maiden resource, which has just been announced to the market, and that's at Ternera. When you say it's a different style of mineralization, what did you mean by that?
Yeah, so traditionally in Chile, it's associated with big porphyry deposits, copper porphyries and copper gold porphyries, and certainly in this part of Chile, it's predominantly IOCG style of mineralization for gold and magnetite, copper and magnetite predominantly. And what we've identified at Ternera is actually an intrusive related gold system. So it's gold only. There's no base metals in it at all. Virtually no copper. Some very low levels of zinc and no silver or anything else. Just pure gold. And the analog to the Ternera deposit are some of the deposits in North America in the Tintina province. So, for example, Northern Star's Pogo gold mine is in the Tintina province.
Right.
And typically these styles of deposits occur in clusters. So if you ever have a look at a map of the Tintina, there's the deposits will cluster together. So we're seeing some of those hallmarks in the ground that we've got. There's certainly prospectivity there for multiple deposits. So we certainly see a lot of gold mineralisation at surface outside of Ternera, and we've actually drilled a couple of places and had some pretty positive results. And I think the other thing that it's done is because we've identified this style of mineralisation has never been described in Chile before. It's given us a pretty big commercial advantage and first mover advantage, particularly in this region, looking for this style of mineralisation. We think we know what's causing it. So we've got a fairly fair way up the learning curve in terms of exploring for it, and hence, the decision to expand the ground position that we took, and there was a lot of free pegging ground, and we've pretty well got what. Is that
because no one had really cottoned onto this and you thought, hang on a second, we might be on something here, so let's peg before the others come in. Now the others are pegging around you, but you've got a substantial land holding in this area. Yeah,
that's right. So we identified a corridor that we think is highly prospective. There's some other rocks outside of that corridor which may have some small gold showings in them or some anomalous results or something, but we think it's outside of the main corridor. I think one of the reasons that it was free pegging, so there's been no acquisition costs really except for the licensing fees and so on. And going back to that bulk tonnage, low grade mining scenario, is typically these deposits don't show themselves as high grade veins or something that the artisanal miners can sink their teeth into. Okay. So there's literally nothing done on the ground. So this is all virgin territory and highly unexplored, but right on the coast and right close to roads and easy access. So, over the years of studying the geology and working through and targeting the areas that we wanted to be, we took a look at a few places and settled on El Zorro.
Love that. By the way, just love that name, El Zorro. You've come out with a maiden
it means fox.
Oh, does it?
Yes.
All right. Well, we won't go too much into that. The maiden mineral estimate for your discovery, which was at Ternera, was 660,000 ounces of gold. Has that surprised you to the upside? And why do you think the market hasn't recognised that you've got this decent maiden resource estimate? Because, look, I'll be frank, the share price to me is a little bit on the...
Yeah, look,
very much, really.
Obviously, of course, we're disappointed in the market reaction to the resource. There's lots of things that we can control, and that's the development of El Zorro and the development of the company. But unfortunately, we can't always control the market. And look, I think given the amount of work that we've done in the last 18 months and pointing at a 660,000 ounce maiden resource with plenty of scope for continued growth of that resource, you know, I think it's an exceptional outcome. I don't think there's many of our peers out there that can point to such a productive 18 months since listing. So,
well, let's talk about that, because you say you've had a very productive 18 months, and you clearly have. Let's go through what it is that you've done in the 18 months in the lead up to this MRE.
Yeah, so since listing in February last year, we've done a couple of rounds of capital raising. So we've raised just over 30 million Australian dollars. We've still got 11 million in the bank at the moment.
Okay.
So we're well funded to continue the work plan and on the trajectory that we're going in terms of the work that we need to do to move this project through development into a decision to mine. And in that 18 months, we've drilled 60 kilometres of diamond drill holes, so over 200 holes of diamond drilling into this project. Did you say
60 kilometres?
Yeah, so over 60,000 metres of drilling into this project so far. So the other thing that we have done is when we got to El Zorro, the only known gold mineralisation was at Ternera. We've now identified 6 other targets. We've drilled 3 of them. They've all returned positive results. We continue to grow the scale of the project and the mineralised footprint just in and around the actual Ternera district. So we've got mineralisation at Drone Hill to the west of Ternera, Ternera East, obviously to the east. Torre Gordo, we hit some really nice high-grade vein mineralisation to the south of Ternera, with Ternera sitting straight in the middle of it all. So multiple targets that we've identified that were never known previously. And that, I guess, gave us the impetus then to say, you know, getting back to that intrusive-related gold system clustering of deposits, if you like. Actually, we think this is a new gold district, and had a closer look at the regional geology as well. Saw there was a lot of vacant ground. It looks like it's got the right ingredients to potentially host more gold mineralisation, so we went off and pegged it. So in that 18 months, we've expanded from a 10,000 hectare project to 550 square kilometres, 60 kilometres of strike. So we, you know, been very active in that regard. We think we've got the best of it. And obviously with all that drilling, we've been able to publish a maiden resource estimate, which is beginning to demonstrate the potential scale. We think it's got a long way to go though.
Yeah.
And, you know, the potential grade of, you know, open pit bulk mining operation at El Zorro.
Do you think maybe the market hasn't quite grasped the fact that the low grade is okay, because you've got a low grade, but you're ticking all the boxes because it's low cost and your recoveries are very high as well, aren't they?
Yeah, so we've done some initial met work and that was really positive, you know, so at a really coarse grind size. So if your listeners can imagine, you know, beach sand basically. So barely any energy being put into grinding it at all. We were recovering up to 94% gold recovery. So that was good, but even better is that a lot of that gold was coming out in the gravity circuit. So it doesn't even need to have cyanide on it. So we had about 60 to 65% gravity recovery at that grind size. So all of a sudden that starts to offer early cash flows and all of these sorts of things when we look at plugging it into the economics of a future mine here.
Right.
And the other important aspect is the really low tails gold grade that we saw in that initial network. So what that allows us to do, and when we looked at our resource, is, you know, potentially what would the head grade be for a operating mine here? And that comes right down to potentially as low as 0.3 of a gram per tonne. So anything above 0.3, we're going to mine potentially.
Okay.
So, and make good money out of it. early
Yeah,
cash
and I
flow.
think that's important to note as well, because I said just before, it's a low cost as well, because the gold price is the gold price, and if you can bring in that all-in sustaining cost down to a reasonable level, then you're shooting off a decent chunk of change when it comes time to that decision to mine.
Yeah, that's right. And there's some cost advantages in Chile, obviously, in operating a mine. And it's important for people to note that Chile are probably the best operators in the world of open pit mines. That's what they do really well. They've got a long history of it. Some of the most efficient copper mines in the world are these big open pit copper mines that are operating in Chile. And, they're moving more ore material in those big mines than the West Australian iron ore mines do. So they're huge operations, but what it's done is it's educated and equipped a workforce with all the skill set that's required to make efficient open pit mining really profitable. So we've been collecting a lot of data on costs and so on for operating over there. And we definitely see a distinct cost differential between operating an open pit mine in Chile as opposed to, say, Australia. So, I think in the back of our presentation for the resource estimate, we had some pit optimization parameters, and if you just draw people's attention to the actual costs that were put in there, that comes out of that database. And when you sort of back calculate that to looking at what our recoveries potentially are, even at that low grade, you start to look at, all-in sustaining costs of potentially sub $1,000 an ounce. So that's really what we're trying to target. And all we need to do to reach that goal is grow the Ternera deposit and the surrounding potential deposits to a scale that warrant, building a plant that is capable of supporting that mining operation. So, there's an economies of scale play, certainly there. But I don't think we're that far off it with that initial 660,000 ounces. We're going to convert a bit more of that into indicated. We're going to add quite a lot more to it, we would think. And then we start to really see the positive economics come out of this project.
Okay, I want to talk about what's going on as we go through towards the end of this year. But before I do, you mentioned earlier you've done 200 drill holes. Did they all come back with mineralization? Because that's a lot of drill holes that you've done.
Yeah, I think we've had one hole that didn't have a significant intercept in it out of all of
intercept. Okay.
That we've reported so far. So I think out of that 200, we've still got probably around 50 of those holes have got outstanding assays. I'm still waiting for those assays to come back from the lab. And out of those 206 holes, I think it is, they collared the 206 hole last night. Only 148 of those holes were used in this maiden resource estimate.
Okay.
So we've got, another 25% of our meters that we've drilled into this deposit weren't included in this resource estimate. And a majority of those holes that weren't included, we're seeing the right material. We're hitting the fault zones that host majority of the gold mineralisation. And we'll continue reporting those, obviously, as results come to hand.
Yep.
And start to show the market, all this mineralisation that's outside of the existing resource estimate that we're going to add into it in the future in a resource upgrade.
I just want to ask, so many questions go through my head. You are doing a lot of drilling. Is it easy access to drill rigs? How many have you got on site? Whereabouts are they at the moment? And then I want to go on to the team.
Yeah, so we've got 6 drill rigs on site. So look, Chile's an absolute breeze to work in. The moment you have that exploration concession in your hand, you can pretty well do whatever you want in terms of getting on the ground and doing the work that needs to be done to drill and sample and put roads and all of those sorts of things in. So very straightforward to work in. And as I said before, we've been drilling at El Zorro since day one of listing back in February 2020. So we're on the ground straight away, and we pretty well haven't stopped since. So at the moment, we've got 4 rigs on Ternera, and they're doing that extensional drilling, doing some more infill to convert a lot of that inferred material into indicated. And we've now deployed 2 rigs to the Ternera East target, which we think is going to make a material and significant improvement to the economics of the mine, because Ternera East actually sits in the hanging wall of the main Ternera deposit. We've had 1 drill hole back with assays so far with a mineable width of mineralisation. I think from memory it was around 15 metres at 1.2 or 3 grams per tonne or something. And we've identified the host rocks. We've got the right structures. We think we know where it's all going. We drilled a second hole there, hit pretty similar looking material. Those assays are nearly with us. So we put 2 rigs there because we think we're going to delineate some more ounces in Ternera East, and that'll significantly reduce the stripping ratio of the entire operation going forward. Once those 2 rigs are finished there, they'll probably be deployed to Drone Hill for a closer look at Drone Hill, which is to the west of Ternera and sits in the footwall. And we're also looking at drilling to the north up at Toro Blanco, where we've extended all the host rocks all the way up to the north there. So we think this is all interconnected. It could be one big deposit. We don't know yet.
I was going to say, Zeph, do you reckon there's I guess the mother lode somewhere, or is this?
Well, I was having this discussion with our chief geo on site last night actually, and he's starting to get the feeling that Ternera might not be it. It could be the edge of something.
Oh,
so
wow.
The more work we do, the more encouragement we get. So we've got a lot of work to do outside of Ternera, and that'll all be done throughout the year. You know, we're doing it very systematically. We certainly don't waste a dollar on unnecessary drilling. It's all very targeted, and I guess that's evidence in the continual positive results out of nearly every drill hole. But look, I must say the team on site have done an exceptional job, and they're really excited about what they're seeing at the moment on some of these other targets. And they've been bugging me for a while to let them loose with a drill rig or 2 to go and drill them. So we've been obviously focused on getting as much as we can into Ternera to get it into resource, which we've done now. So we've redeployed a couple of rigs to some of these other targets to take a closer look at them. And, you know, we're optimistic that we'll turn up some more gold.
Sounds like you're only just getting started now. I have to ask this question. Have you guys got skin in the game? I always say to people, what's the management got? Have you got skin in the game, guys?
Yeah, look, you know, as I mentioned before, the founders of the company funded the company for quite some time. The first round of drilling was funded by the founders, which is myself, Jeff McNamara, who's a non-exec director, and Sergio Uribe in Chile. So, you know, obviously we put a fair bit of our own money into the company initially.
Yep.
And currently we're all, between the management team and directors, that we own about 15 or 16% of the company. So obviously it's in our best interest to execute our strategy, which is basically to build a gold mine at El Zorro. You know, that was the base strategy. It always is the base strategy. Now that we've got a resource on the table, we can actually start to do a lot of the pre-mine work and really look at, you know, critically look at the information that we've got to say, is this going to work? We haven't seen any red flags yet. And probably just, you know, I'd like to tell listeners, this isn't an exploration company. This is a company that is going to build a mine if we continue in the trajectory that it's going at the moment. So, you know, we're optimistic that we're on the right pathway for that. We've been able to deliver continuously over the last 18 months, and there's plenty more to come.
Well, you've certainly been getting on with it. We're running out of time, so I want to just say to you, what can our listeners expect from you for the rest of 2020 going into 2021?
Yeah, look, as I said, this company is not an exploration company, really. It's a mine development company now. We've got a deposit. We've demonstrated that with our maiden resource estimate. That deposit's going to grow, and we're optimistic that we're going to find more deposits or extensions to that deposit with more exploration as the year goes on. And, ultimately, this is, number two, this is going to be a big low-grade bulk tonnage open pit, low-cost mine in a jurisdiction being Chile, which is well equipped to make and build an efficient open pit mining operation in this environment. So that's the real focus for us is to get through all of that development and studies and permitting and all of those things. So we're working on all of that now. And I think, number three, I just think that the market's probably misunderstood the scale, the potential scale at Ternera and the opportunity at El Zorro that it presents, that there's further growth ahead. This initial resource demonstrates there's something there, but I think it's got a long, long way to go in terms of its scale and certainly the economics that it potentially presents.
All right. So summing it up, Zeph, sum it up for me. I always ask this, 3 reasons why these people listening right now to you should be taking a good, hard look at Tesoro Resources ASX code TSO. Why now is a good time to invest? Give me just 3 reasons why now is a good time to invest.
Well, I think number 1, at the moment, we're probably cheap. And 2, as I said, it's not an exploration company. We're going forward. We're going to build a mine. It's ticking all the boxes. The more work we do to this, the better it's getting. The more of the economics are starting to make sense. The metallurgy is making sense. The team on site have got the geology under control. They're getting excited about all the other extensions and other targets in the district. So we're going to add more ounces to this initial resource, and that's going to form the basis for building a mine. And look, just where we're located, we're in Chile. It's a well-equipped workforce that can execute the building of one of these types of mines. And it makes it all very easy once that economic decision to mine's there. And, so far, we're seeing all the right hallmarks for having a good economic operation.
And the big boys are circling the wagons, ladies and gentlemen. As Zeph said right at the beginning, they've pegged a great lot of exploration land there. But as he said, they're not just another explorer. They are a mine development company. The ASX code is TSO. They're doing a lot of work, and they're putting shareholder funds into the ground by way of the drill bit. Zeph Reeves, Managing Director of Tesoro Resources, thanks for joining me on Small Caps today.
Thanks, Kerry. It's been a pleasure.